Well, um, Kathy and Brendan, thanks so much for hanging out today. We're going to give it a few seconds to make sure we're live, and then we'll jump into real introductions and what we're hoping to do today. And I already got a thumbs up. That's record time, you guys. I
Yay!
usually have to, spitball for a couple minutes. No. Um, for all of you logging in live, thanks so much for joining us today. It's actually been a couple months since we did our last podcast webinar uh, with all things Sundance. And today we are lucky enough to have Kathy and Brennan, who both work for Boulder County, and specifically for the the licensing department. Am I saying that right? Or you're involved in licensing. I'll let you guys introduce yourself better than what I'm doing. But for those of you that haven't logged in before, my name is Ross Bowdy. I am the director of Airbnb midterm rentals at Fox Property Management, and the last year has been very interesting as this Sundance thing approaches our community for all of us in furnished rentals. And so I have been enjoying meeting all these lovely people in my community who are doing things to help others get involved, help them do things the right way to get their home. And today we have our good friends over at the county. And so I'm going to give you guys a moment to introduce yourselves properly, tell us what roles you play at the county, and then we'll jump into the fun stuff.
Sure, sounds great. Thanks for having us, Ross. My name is Kathy Gissel. I am the Permit and License Operations Manager for Boulder County Community Planning and Permitting. So the licensing team is housed there in the Community Planning and Permitting department. So I've been with the county in this role for 19 and a half years, so it's been a while. So this is having Sundance here is really one of the exciting things that I can say that I'm looking forward to in my time here with the county and the department. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the festival has in store for us in 2027.
Awesome.
And I'm Brendan McGuinness. I'm the licensing specialist in community planning and permitting. I work under Kathy, so I do the day-to-day processing of short-term vacation rental licenses as well as other business licenses for the county.
Awesome. And how long have you been with the county, Brennan?
I've been with the county for 7 years in this role for 3.5, nearly 4 years.
Okay. So you guys aren't spring chickens. You guys have been doing this for a while, which is awesome. So,
Yeah.
obviously, what we've seen over the last 6 months, especially as the movement towards, do I want to get involved? Do I want to host people? Um, you know, things are changing. There's a lot of information out there, and so, I think for me, what I'm hoping that we can get from you guys is some of the insider knowledge of like what you're seeing as license applications are coming in. But I think the first question I want to ask is like, can you give a rundown of, does unincorporated Boulder County homes have a tool to be able to get a lodging license for an event like this, and kind of what does that look like, and you know is it a festival license, is it something else, like can I just give the people a rundown of kind of what you guys have for them to tap into?
Yeah, of course. So the county does have a short-term rental program. We do not have a festival license. We felt that we've had this license program in place for, I believe, 2021 is when it began. And so we didn't feel that we needed to create a new festival license because our license that we have currently allows for people to rent their properties uh, even during Sundance. So although we don't have a festival license, it doesn't mean they can't rent during the festival. They just would need to obtain the short-term rental license that we have in place already.
Awesome. um, is Are there multiple options inside that program for owners to consider, or is there just one clear, this is the license to go after?
So we have two types of licenses. We have a short-term rental license and we have a vacation rental license. So a lot of people think those are one and the same, but they're not really. They're a little bit the same, but there's different criteria to them. So, I before we started doing this licensing program, I would say the words interchangeably, or Airbnb is what I would refer to it as. But
Yeah.
however, like I said, we have a short-term rental license available, and what that is any rental that is less than 30 days at any given time to a single renter through a home that is the primary home of the property owner. So, primary home to us means you live in the home at least 6 months out of the year. So, you have to prove that you have lived there by essentially signing an affidavit and showing us your driver's license that has that address on there. But basically, it's your primary home. You can rent it out every single day of the year if you'd like to. There's a caveat there, though, that only 45 days out of the year you can rent the entire structure in its entirety.
Yeah.
The rest of the time, you have to be on site with them. So that's the short-term rental license. Then we have a vacation rental license, which is for people who are renting out their non-primary home. So it's a secondary home or it's an investment property, something like that. So that you don't obviously have to show proof that it's your primary home, but it's there's a little bit more restrictions to those because we do only allow those in the mountainous part of the county, a couple areas in the mountainous part of the county. And when I say mountainous, that means west of 36. Short-term rentals can be throughout the entire community or the entire county.
One of the things that I think has been interesting for me as we've walked alongside so many people as we're talking to them is a lot of people are finding out that they are unincorporated as opposed to City of Boulder. Is there a helpful place for somebody to go put in their address if they're on the fence of like, am I? What? Where? Who should I? I've actually had many people say they've started the city festival licensing process to have the city be like, you aren't technically City of Boulder. So as people are thinking about what is my next step, is there an easy place for them to go and put in their address and see where they land, and then that helps them know what step to take?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a question that until you have to go through a process with the county or the city, you don't realize that there is an unincorporated Boulder County versus a city. So anybody that's come across this, you're not alone. There's been so many people over my time that have no idea they're actually in unincorporated Boulder County. So we do have on our short-term rental page, we do have a tool. It's actually called, when you're on the web page, it says find out which rental types may be permitted on your property and which type might be right for you. So you click on that and you essentially just type in your address and it will tell you if you are not in unincorporated Boulder County. Or if you are, then it will say on your property, these are the types of licenses available to you. Yeah.
Awesome.
And if you're not in unincorporated Boulder County, it'll give you a link to open up all of the different jurisdictions within Boulder County, but that are city limits. So
awesome. And we tool. Will, any sort of website that we talk about during today, we will put it in the comments, not comments, but like the show notes, so that people can just click right from there and be able to do these things. So that's super helpful. So we'll be sure to get that exact link from you guys after this so that we can be helpful for people. Are there any specific things that you guys are seeing people run into that surprise them about the process with your short-term rental, whether it's vacation or not? And maybe we'll take this in two things. If it's a vacation rental, they're eligible because they're west of Broadway, kind of those mountainous regions. Is there anything that's surprising people that you guys are seeing that maybe they see as an obstacle, but it's part of the process, but that they're kind of fighting you on, and how can we help them understand just the proper process and how to take the next best step to not get defeated and just give up because it's like, oh, that's harder than I wanted this to be.
Sure. Yeah, Bren, do you want to take that one since
Sure. It's
you
more,
deal with them on a day-to-day basis?
And let's do it too. Let's do the vacation one, and then we'll go to the short term one if there's also a separate answer for that.
do you know, there isn't really a separate answer.
Okay.
The documentation itself is the same. As Kathy said before, the only difference would be if it's a short-term rental, you have to prove that it's your primary residence,
Okay.
which is fairly straightforward. You know, you show your ID and sign the affidavit. Um, I would say the biggest, most confusing part for a lot of people, the most common confusing part would be the insurance requirements. Um, so you have to show that you have a rental exposure, which is essentially proof that your insurer is allowing you to rent the property. That's probably the most common in terms of the application, getting the paperwork together, as well as the floor plan. Um, we do need a floor plan, general layout of the area, but whenever you get talking to people, it's simpler than they think it is. It doesn't need to be a professional floor plan, just a general layout for guests.
That makes sense. And I actually have asked this question before, just not on a podcast. And so I thought that would be what you would share. And what's interesting is I've talked to some insurance people to say, like, help me understand rental exposure compared to some other things. And it's exactly that, that it's like you've actually told your insurance company this is what you plan to do with the property.
Mm.
Now, what's hard and what we've ran across with a lot of people is certain insurance companies will say, we won't insure that. And so I think that's created some of the like um, frustration from people is that well, I
Mm.
have to change homeowners insurance to do this. Um, but I will say we've had a few people move to some other providers in this moment. And I think part of it is just finding an insurance provider that um, understands the what this is and is willing to or has the riders has the liability coverage that you want to have anyway. And really it's I I get that it's like another thing to prove, but I also am like, well, you definitely want to have proper insurance coverage while you're doing it. You know,
Yeah.
while the platforms that you may get booked from have some level of, I would say, uh, things in your house coverage, meaning a few, like a couch or a table or, some of those things. None of those platforms have enough coverage to like do a full rebuild kind of
Mm.
thing. And so not having your homeowners know that you're doing this really does put you at a risk. And so I think that's a totally reasonable thing. And it's just about language and about, what you find is a lot of people don't have a great relationship with their insurance provider to know who to talk to get a fairly simple answer to a question. And I know some people like I love my insurance people and they don't offer it, so I'm out. And that's totally fair. That's your prerogative, but I've
Mm.
definitely that as well. Um, One of the questions we get is like, who, what is Boulder County's role in all of this? Like what? I guess a lot of people don't understand that there's a difference between city and county, and partially just because the word Boulder is involved. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, how would you explain to people kind of the helpful differences in the roles that you guys play that are obviously like helpful and together, but also separate, and so the people understand why there are different processes.
Sure. Yeah, so our role has really been to be a good partner to the City of Boulder. 'Cause this is kind of their show. Sundance is their show. It's coming to the City of Boulder. So, as the county, like I said, we're really here. Our role is really to be a good partner to them. So, at the same time, each jurisdiction has their own rules and regulations and licensing programs. So, for unincorporated Boulder County, we had already had the short-term rental licensing. So we just decided to continue to go with that rather than creating our own festival license as the City of Boulder did. So, this year we're using, or this time around we're using our existing framework to get through the festival. So yeah, really, again, our role is really to support the city of Boulder. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's really
No,
kind of what we're here for.
that's helpful. And I think you kind of said it in a previous answer of like, you don't really realize there's a difference until you apply for a permit to do a home remodel and the city's like, oh, actually. And what's interesting about you guys is it's more than just Boulder residents. There's pockets of the whole county that actually are unincorporated. And so I think that's something for people to think about. And I would say all of those pockets have a Sundance opportunity. This is bigger than just Boulder city limits. And so whether that's Louisville, Erie, not all of Erie, which is another thing that you're like,
Hmm.
you know, and so I think it's helpful for people to understand like part of it is that there's these pockets of our county that don't sit inside that city's control. And so you guys sort of are the umbrella to help the rest,
Hmm.
um, to be able to have a path forward, not just in renting your house out short term,
Right.
but in all things. And so
Yeah, right, exactly.
um, I'm going to move on to kind of the license questions a little bit that I was thinking about. And um, I think for me, answering a few simple questions to help people understand what's possible. So I
Okay.
really like the question of what sort of occupancy rules do you guys have in place with your licensing? I will say even some of the people who are asking to stay at our homes, as they're kicking the tires on this Sundance thing, are saying, "Are you okay if we put 16, 18 people in a 10-person home?" And I'm like, "No, and that's just not the way this is set up." But so help us understand any of those, some of what some of those potential limitations and things that are built into the license.
So, so we have an absolute limit of 8 people, or whatever the septic system's rated for. So if it's the 3 bedroom septic system, the maximum occupancy would be 6. So it's whichever's lower out of 8 or what the septic system's rated for. If it's on municipal, like City of Boulder, it would be 8. There's no limits on municipal.
So not every unincorporated Boulder County is on septic, but if you are, that can dictate what your max is. Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
And how have you guys, I think one of the things, there's a lot of different questions coming at us, and we're very much like, here are the rules. This is what you need to follow, you know. Um, but I do think I'm getting a sense that people are saying, obviously, city and county rules matter to me. HOA, I'll fight that later, you know. But like, how have you guys reached out to people, or what is a process if somebody puts their house up, didn't realize they were in a place where they're unincorporated? How do you reach out to those owners to say, hey, you didn't do this properly. We need you to take these steps, and here's kind of the process to avoid people listing their places for rent, not going through the process.
Yeah, so we have a company that keeps track of the rental platforms, and there is a requirement that when you put your rental on one of the rental platforms, you have to indicate what your license number is. So the platforms know, so Airbnb, VRBO, Expedia, all of them know what Boulder County, unincorporated Boulder County's nomenclature is, as well as the other jurisdictions. So you do have to put your license number in there, and that company looks for those postings that are going on those rental platforms, and if they see something that's on there that should not be on there because it's not properly licensed, either they don't have a license or they're renting for too many people. They're even though they got a license with us
Yeah.
and their limit is 6 people, but they see on that platform that they're renting it to 10 people.
Yep.
They do notify us. They do send a letter out to the property owner to let them know of the violation. So that's how we're notifying them, is just letting them know that we recognize that you're renting, but please make sure you get what you need to get the license you need to get to be able to do it. We want you to rent if you can rent, but please do it according to the regulations.
Love that. And I think a lot of people just have this idea of like no one's checking. Just do whatever you want. And I like to say often of like no, there's definitely people checking. I I definitely have had conversations, and I will say I don't know how long it's been going on, but you used to be able to just put on any platform without putting in a license on the front end, and now it is very much like, hey, to finalize your listing, we need you to put the license into the listing to be able to go fully live. And so, if you're using one of those platforms, it'll just stop you
They
if
will,
you're
yeah.
not
They'll
there.
they'll take it down because they are, yeah. It's a state regulation to those
Yeah,
platforms that they have to make sure that they're
properly licensed.
properly
Yeah,
licensed to advertise them. So yeah.
yeah. Um, how often uh, do you have to renew the licenses that you guys have?
We have a 2 year license term.
Okay. And is there a difference between initial license and renewal as far as how that's structured?
The application process itself on our online platform is essentially the same. There is a reduced cost.
Okay.
So short-term rental are 350 for a first time and then 250 for a renewal after the 2 years. And then it's 500 and 300 for vacation rentals. Paperwork wise, if if your floor plan, for example, hasn't changed, if the layout of the property hasn't changed, you haven't got a new septic system, or we can just use the old paperwork for that, but we will need documents that have expired. So if your ID has
Sure.
expired since the first insurance, and also the short-term rental affidavit is required each year.
That makes sense. Um, I don't want to get too into the weeds on what it looks like step by step to apply, but like from can you give the people a little bit of an understanding of what to expect as they start that process so that maybe they can do some of the initial legwork before they start the application process? Because I find that sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm going to go online and do this thing, and then they ask for four things, and I'm like, I don't know where those are, and then I kind of forget. And so, can you at least give a little bit of a rundown of what people should expect in the application process?
Yeah, so the first thing I would recommend to people to do would be use the aforementioned website to see what license types are available, sort of familiarize themselves with what they want to achieve. Um, on our website, just below that, there's a checklist. So I'd always recommend that people look at the checklist, get your documents together before starting the application. The application itself is very straightforward. It's more getting the paperwork together. Um, so yeah, no, absolutely. Look at it first, get everything ready, so it's just there in a file to upload. Um, and yeah, and also, very few people have got it right the first time. I would say to people as well, give it your best shot, and we can tell you specifically if any changes need to be made.
Okay. And are there any inspections required for the licensing process?
Yes, a building inspection is required. It's the last step.
Okay.
So your application will go to a few different teams, like public health, access, and engineering. And then once they all approve you, it'll go to the building inspectors who'll reach out to you to arrange that.
That makes sense. And is that somebody from the county or is it like a third party?
It's with the county. Yeah, one
Okay.
of our own from our own department.
Yeah. The reason I ask is long-term licenses in Boulder and Denver, there's an inspection required, but it's usually a third party that does it, to check certain boxes that those cities want checked.
Mhm.
So I appreciate knowing the difference there. This is sort of a out of left field question, but I think some of the things that um, we are seeing a lot of people ask questions about that's like a bigger long-term thing is like, should I be buying something to also take advantage of some of this Sundance thing? Should I be should I be moving things around? I think the question I'd love some insight is if I'm a realtor and I have some buyers who are looking to get a property that can take advantage of this Sundance moment and maybe some other things too. Um, what advice, or not advice, but like what would a realtor need to know to help those potential buyers find a place that actually has the most potential? And I don't mean that you guys need to be like, this is the perfect place to make the most off of Sundance, but like, or maybe avoid certain spots where it's very hard to get a license, whatever it might be. But I'm just kind of, trying to think outside the box of these are the kinds of questions I think we're going to see over the next few years as this becomes more clear of what it actually means financially for a homeowner. And so any insight you could give to the realtors who may look at this or future buyers to say, oh, this is an opportunity or at least something to avoid.
Yeah, definitely. What they should do is first of all make sure which jurisdiction they're in, obviously, because the regulations are going to be different in each jurisdiction. The second thing is once you figure out what jurisdiction it is in, you want to make sure that it's actually a property that can do a short-term rental or a vacation rental license. So a lot of times it's assumed that it's your property, you can do whatever you want with it. But there are rules and regulations that go along with the properties. So, for unincorporated Boulder County, since that's who we represent, you want to make sure, first of all, if they're wanting to do a short-term rental versus a vacation rental. The short-term rental, again, is the primary home, so that can be done in any parts of the county, but they also have to live there at least 6 months out of the year. The vacation rental, it's not their primary home, and those are only allowed in certain parts of the county. So really doing the due diligence to make sure that what somebody wants to purchase is actually able to do what they want to do with it. So if they want to have, an investment property in the plains, so east of 36, it cannot be they cannot do a vacation rental there. It would have to be they would have to be their primary home. So really just figuring those things out. So again, make sure you're looking at the right jurisdictions, rules and regulations, and making sure that what they really want to do with that property can get licensed doing what they want to do. So make no assumptions.
I
Call,
like that. I like
call,
that.
talk to the jurisdiction. We have great planners on our team that will take a look at the property with them and say, this one can be vacation rental, this one can be a short-term rental. One of the things that is sometimes a struggle in getting a license for a vacation rental license in the mountains is the access. So you do need to make sure that the ability to have emergency access get into the property, there are some regulations around that. So talk to our planners when you're thinking of doing something, even if you're not set to buy yet, you just want to ask. And everything is site specific. It's not a blanket approach to everything. So you want to have an address in mind. So you want to let the planners take a look at the property with you online and come up with some things that could be a hurdle. But yeah, so reach out to us. That's kind of the long, but the short to the long answer.
And I'm also thinking like we gave the idea of like where to go to put it in your address if you already have a home to find out what's possible. You
Mm-hmm.
should probably use that same tool as a realtor or as a buyer to see what comes up as possible. And you might find out you're not even in an incorporated Boulder County.
Exactly.
Uh, uh, are there any places that people have been surprised is under your jurisdiction? Like I've grown up here my whole life, and I've been surprised at times that I'm like, oh, that's just unincorporated Boulder County as opposed to a city or whatnot. And obviously, Boulder County is not small as far as like as it stretches out, especially up north of Boulder. There's a lot there that I believe is unincorporated. Um, but I think some people start to think, oh, I'm in, and I actually don't know the answer to this, so fill me in. I'm in Lyons, so I'm not controlled by unincorporated Boulder County. It's like, well, hold on. Are there parts of the Lyons that are? And so uh, I think you guys are even up. Is it like Allen's Park is technically even in your
Mhm.
jurisdiction? So
Mhm.
I'm throwing out some things, but I'm just kind of curious if any others come to mind that's like, oh no, this is part of Boulder County.
Yeah, I think that the big one that comes to mind is Niwot. So the town of Niwot is unincorporated, although they are a town that they are all under unincorporated Boulder County. There are also little enclaves within the city of Boulder that are unincorporated Boulder County. So there's one that I can think of, but I'm not off the top of my head where it's at. But it really seems like it would be in the city of Boulder. And there is also one in the city of Longmont that you would think is, oh, this is definitely city, but it's not. It's unincorporated. So
Yeah.
there are some little pockets in each of those little cities and towns that have the potential to be unincorporated. So, but then there are also all of those mountain towns as well. Netherland, uh, Lyons, like you said.
Along
Those,
the peak to peak highway
yes,
there
yeah.
back towards the city. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing, the one town that comes to mind that's actually not under our jurisdiction that some people would think would be Ward. So Ward has its own jurisdiction up there. So
Okay.
that's one that's been kind of a surprise to people as well. So that's not unincorporated. It is actually they have their own town limit up there. So yeah. So there's
That's
it's.
super helpful. That's
I
super
wish it was
helpful.
a clear cut line of like this is county, this is city, but
Yeah.
it's unfortunately not.
Another thing that I have noticed, but I think it's a little bit of the reality of this whole idea of Airbnb, Verbo, having people not just utilize those in the ski resort and beach towns of the world, but in normal towns all over the world. Um, Rules and regulations and laws and permits seem to change rapidly. But I also think it's the fact that 10 years ago, no one had anything, and we're trying to play catch up a little bit. How often do you feel like you guys look at your system and then kind of tweak it and change it and do things new? Because I do think that's one of our challenges is we try to like inform people what is real for, I think I counted that I have like 14 jurisdictions that I host different homes in, because we're South Denver all the way up to Longmont and everything in between. Um, and so, how often do you feel like people should be paying attention to things might have changed since you last looked?
Yeah, it's a great question because it would be great if everybody was under the same rules and regulations. Because when you're dealing with different towns in different jurisdictions, it's hard to keep up with it. So it is a good question. As far as the licensing goes for short-term rentals, our licenses went into place in 2021, and we have updated them once since, and that
Okay.
was 2 years ago. We don't have any plans of updating anytime soon, but we are constantly, as things are happening during our day to day workflow, we are keeping kind of tabs on what are some pain points, what are some things that we're hearing from the public. And, we'll come together and talk about those things. And when we feel like it's, time that we revisit them, we will do that. But there is no set timeline. Like building codes are updated every 3 years, or should be updated every 3 years. There isn't anything like that with licensing. So it's really just a matter of feedback, staff coming to realization on some things that it sounded good on paper, or when
Sure.
we adopted these regulations, it made sense. But when you put it into play, it plays out a little bit differently. So not really a clear answer for you as far as like how
Oh,
often. It's really just as needed, I guess, is probably the right answer.
yeah, but I think it is very helpful to know in 5 years time, it's only changed once. and I think that's actually slower than what a lot of people would think, because I think a lot of times people think the goalpost is always moving somewhere and
Mm-hmm.
having things happen. And so I've also had people ask at panels I've hosted out in the wild of like, well, what if every entity changes their licensing requirements, and so I do all these changes hoping for 10 years of Sundance success, and in 3 years I can't do it anymore. I'm like, that's a fair question. But I think when it's all said and done, I think I don't get a sense from you guys or any of the other entities we're talking to that your goal is to trick people and to take away things. And so I like knowing that it's not like an every year we're tweaking things, so that people understand that it's like, yeah, we're trying our best. We want to do this responsibly. I think that's one of the things that I really am an advocate for, is like there's a responsible way to do this kind of renting. And so play by the rules, do what you can. If you thought one thing and you find out another is true, don't just stay here being stubborn and frustrated. Figure out how it could work under what is true. And so it's it's hard because I know a lot of people make choices thinking I've got this opportunity and I'm excited about it. And when they find out it's not quite um, what they thought it was going to be, it's when expectations shift for them. It's frustrating, but you
Yeah.
need to have all the information before you do some stuff. So
Right. And
um,
one piece I just wanted to add to that really
yeah,
quick is
please.
when we do change our regulations, we don't just go and change them. We have a lot of public input. So we
Totally.
encourage the public to come to our hearings and to our meetings and our, pop-up conversations where we advertise out to them, put it on our website, all of that kind of stuff. So, and a lot of times the changes that are happening are because we heard from people and we're hearing them and we're listening to them. And we don't ever want to make things harder for people. We want to allow people to do what they want to do. It's our goal to make sure everything is safe, and that it goes by the regulations that we have in place as far as land use code, all of that stuff. But again, we don't ever go and just change it and then say, oh, by the way, here are the changes. We
Yeah.
we seek feedback from the public a lot ahead of going to the commissioners asking for the changes to be made finalized. So please do, if any of you that are listening, if you do hear that we are doing some regulation changes, please come to our hearings. Please come and chat with us and give your feedback, because we listen, and we want to hear what you have to say.
Well, and what I love about that too is like I think that goes beyond just the county. It's all the cities.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I live in Louisville. Our office is in Louisville, and they did do a festival license, but they have not done like an actual full short term plan. Um, and what I've encouraged local Louisville people who want to do it more than just the festival is go to the city, tell them what you want, write really thoughtful letters, talk to your council people. There are ways to do it because there are really good sides to this type of renting. If you're in a downtown area that is not built for hotels to exist, having a certain amount of approved licenses, like you said, there's limits in some of your spots for how many you do. There's ways to do it where there's a limit so that not everyone does it, but it also allows for a lot of money to stay in like a downtown area that can't have that. So there's a lot of good things to be had if you think about it thoughtfully. And I think as opposed to complaining, be a part of the solution. And
Right.
and I do think most entities are willing to listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Good point.
well, thank you guys so much for doing this today. I think one of the big challenges we've seen is just people having the right in real information to take that next best step. And so I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedules to help in that process. And what's great is even though we're doing this live, this sits on YouTube forever and people can see it, and reference it. And so having said that, I would love both of you to take this question, but if you wanted listeners to remember one thing from our conversation today, what would you want the takeaway to be?
I would say we're here to help. Um, we're not trying to be scary government employees. We're actually trying to guide people through the process. So if anyone ever has any problems, we're here. We work for you, and we're happy to help.
Absolutely. Yeah, I echo what Brendan has said. That's what we're here for. We are here to provide the best in public service to our community. So call us. We answer the phone. We respond to your calls pretty quickly if we aren't able to get to you right away. But please do reach out to us. We love giving you answers. We love guiding you guys down the direction that you need to go. Help giving you solutions. We're not here to tell you no, you can't do that. We're here to help you do what you can with what our regulations allow. So, in addition to that, just because you hear somebody say or hear us say, no, we don't have a festival license, that doesn't mean you can't rent during the festival. It just means you have to obtain the short-term rental license that we have in place, which allows you to rent. And it's a 2-year license, so you may find that you really enjoy renting your place out during Sundance, and you still have 2 more years to use that license, and you can rent it at any point in those 2 years, so that you have that license. So don't just hear what one person says as it can't happen. Call us so we can talk to you and we can let you know based on your property specifically if it's what you're wanting to do is something that you can do, and we'll help you get there if it's possible.
Well, awesome. I also want to give you a chance to share some resources for people to take advantage of. And so I would like you to say these things if you can, which is just what is the website to get to the STR license?
It's bouldercounty.gov. Top right corner, you'll see licenses and permits. There'll be a drop down, go to licenses, and then there's short-term and vacation rental licenses.
Awesome. And we'll also include that in the show notes so that our people can just click right there. And our email's pretty standard for county if they wanted to reach out to each of you individually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so mine is Gissel, Gissel, at bouldercounty.gov. Brendan's is B. McGinnis at bouldercounty.gov. We do also have a general email box that is monitored by both Brendan and I. Brendan is typically the one monitoring it as he's in the day-to-day. When he's out of the office, I jump in and do those. So you don't have to send it directly to us. You can send it to our general email box, which is strlicensing at bouldercounty.org. Sorry, it changed from org to gov.
That's okay.
STR licensing at bouldercounty.gov.
I think either works.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you guys being willing to share your expertise. I think the thing that I've learned in my time having connected with you, Kathy and Brendan, this is our first time meeting, is that you have done exactly what you just said, is help people when they've reached out. And so I really do hope all listeners in Unincorporated Boulder County will take you guys up on it, that you're here to make this process work. And I will say, anyone who has reached out to you has gotten what they needed. And so I appreciate the work you guys are doing. I appreciate you being able to share, help people take that next best step to figuring out if they're going to join in on the fun of this Sundance experience. So appreciate you being here and chatting with us. And until next time, where we talk to other lovely people in our community, have a great day.